How to start a conversation with anyone.
Have you ever wanted to talk to someone, but the moment you got the chance, your brain just completely shut down? Like 1 second you're thinking, okay, I'll just say hi. And then suddenly you're standing there wondering how you've forgotten every word in the English language. Yeah, we've all been there. And the funny thing is, most people think they're bad at conversations. They're not. They're just making one huge mistake. They're treating conversations like tests. Think about it. The second you start worrying about what to say, how to sound cool, how to avoid awkwardness, or how to make the other person like you, you're no longer having a conversation. You're performing. And that's exactly why everything feels awkward. The truth is that people who are great at conversations aren't walking around with some secret list of magical phrases. They just understand something most people don't. Conversations aren't built on perfect words. They're built on attention. Let me explain. Most people walk into conversations focused entirely on themselves. What do I say? Do I sound weird? What if I embarrass myself? Meanwhile, the best conversationalists are focused on the other person. They're paying attention. They're noticing things. They're curious. And curiosity is basically a cheat code for conversations. Because when you're genuinely curious about someone, you'll never run out of things to say. For example, imagine someone tells you they like drawing. Most people would just go, "Oh, that's cool." And then the conversation dies a painful death. But a curious person might say, "What got you into drawing?" Or, "What's the hardest thing you've ever tried to draw?" Or, "If you could draw literally anything perfectly, what would it be?" Now suddenly there's a real conversation happening. Not because you're charismatic, not because you're some social genius, but because you're interested. And people love talking to people who are interested. Now here's another thing. A lot of people think conversations need to be deep or meaningful all the time. They don't. Sometimes the best conversations start with complete nonsense. Seriously, you could literally say, "Okay, random question. If animals could talk, which one would be the most annoying?" And somehow you'll end up having a 10-minute discussion about parrots, seagulls, and angry squirrels. The point isn't the question. The point is creating something fun to talk about. Because good conversations aren't about information. They're about energy. And speaking of energy, let's talk about something that scares people: awkward silence. People treat silence like it's some kind of social disaster. It's not. In fact, one of the biggest signs of confidence is being okay with a little silence. Think about it. When a conversation gets quiet, what do most people do? They panic. They force random topics. They fill every second with noise. But confident people don't do that. They're comfortable. And because they're comfortable, everyone else becomes comfortable too. Now let's get into probably the most useful conversation tip you'll ever hear. Stop trying to be interesting. Become interested. Read that again. Stop trying to be interesting. Become interested. Because the people who desperately try to sound smart, funny, impressive, or cool usually end up sounding fake. Meanwhile, the people who are genuinely interested in others naturally become more interesting themselves. It's weird, but it works. And here's one more thing. Not every conversation will work, and that's okay. Sometimes you'll talk to someone and the chemistry just isn't there. Sometimes they're tired. Sometimes they're busy. Sometimes they simply don't feel like talking. That doesn't mean you're boring. It doesn't mean you're awkward. It just means they're human. A lot of confidence comes from understanding that not every interaction needs to be perfect. Because the moment you stop expecting perfection, conversations become way easier. So let's recap. Pay attention. Be curious. Ask questions that create stories instead of one-word answers. Don't fear silence. Stop trying to impress people. And remember that conversations aren't about saying the perfect thing. They're about connecting with another human being. At the end of the day, people don't remember every word you said. They remember how you made them feel. And sometimes all it takes to make someone feel heard is a simple conversation. So the next time you want to talk to someone, don't overthink it. Just start. Trust me, that's the hardest part. And once you get past that, everything becomes a whole lot easier.